Hello, and welcome back for another episode of My Damn Opinion. This episode is part 3 of my Marvel Cinematic Universe Villains series. In part 1 we covered Phase 1 and Phase 2 in part 2, so of course, now we're going to cover Phase 3. If you haven't watched part 1 or 2, I'll leave a link in the description. Also, don't forget to hit that sub button for more videos like this. I will be leaving time codes in the description for each movie in case you only care about specific films. So, without any further delays, hit that like button and let's get started. Captain America: Civil War. Holy shit, Hydra appears in this movie. Damn. So anyways, this movie really only has one main antagonist, but we're going to talk about a few others. Starting with Crossbone. Frank Grillo returns as Brock Rumlow, aka Crossbones. He's this cool evil dickhead. The costume is a great adaptation of his comic book counterpart. His appearance in The Winter Soldier was an origin, so now we get a full-on supervillain. He's still a fighter and is able to best Black Widow. His story in the film is similar to that of Batroc, only being the opening adversary for the heroes, but also being a part of the driving force behind the Sokovia Accords. He's almost directly responsible as the final straw after trying to commit suicide by bomb. His actions have lasting consequences. He made things personal, planning on killing himself to take out Cap. It's a real shame he dies. It would have been great to have a recurring antagonist throughout many films, but at least we still have Claw to look forward to. We never find out who hired him or why. Is it Hydra? Was it Zemo? Maybe the people Sonny Birch works for? Who the hell knows? Thaddeus Ross is back as Secretary of State. He's still an asshole, that's pretty much it. To be honest, I'm not going to rank him again, so yeah, the performance is still great. There, I said something about him. Tony Stark, billionaire playboy philanthropist. Likes to give up Iron Man, but not really all the time. What I love about him being an antagonist of this film is he's not actually a villain. Tony and Steve are two sides of the same coin, with differing views looking for a similar outcome. I'm not going to rank Tony on my list of villains, but he deserves to be talked about. Tony is guilt-ridden because of his destructive behavior that has cost the lives of many. Charlie Spencer is the final straw for Tony. Tony has become extremely remorseful over his actions and wants to do the right thing and give the Avengers accountability. He knows they need it. He is such a nice contrast to Steve because neither one of them are right or wrong in their beliefs, and their conflict is thrusted upon us and we are left to decide. Do you side with Tony? Or do you side with Cap? Again, there is no right or wrong answer, and we get to understand both sides. Tony's problem is his ego. Pepper takes a break from him because of his ego of not being able to let go of being Iron Man. Tony almost convinces Steve to sign the Accords, but his ego and thinking he knows what's best for everyone and anyone ruins that. With Tony, he allows his ego and arrogance to cloud his judgment. It's just great seeing such growth in a character that doesn't seem to have room to grow. Helmut Zemo. This guy, man. This guy. Played by Daniel Brawl, Zemo is a highly intelligent, strong-willed master strategist. He is a man motivated by revenge for the death of his family during the events of Sokovia. He is driven by his goals and aspirations. He's methodical and meticulous. He doesn't enjoy violence, but he can be violent. But it's never for the sake of violence. It's always done with purpose behind it. He's a dark character with a haunting past and suffers from a tragic loss. Unlike most villains, he actually succeeds in his master plan. He fractures the Avengers. Zemo has a lasting impact. Tony hesitates calling Cap in Infinity War. Adding to the darkness of his character, he planned and attempted to commit suicide to be with his family because he felt his purpose in life has been fulfilled. Zemo isn't outright evil, he's just driven by his ambitions and will stop at nothing to achieve them, doing evil things along the way. I love the twist with his voicemail. You almost think he actually missed a call from his wife, and then we find out later that they're dead. And he deletes the message before attempting to kill himself, but Black Panther stops him. And you almost sympathize with him because he deleted the message thinking he would no longer need it, now losing the only thing he has left of his family. The only real negative thing I can say is, and I think the way the Russos went with it works very well, is that I thought Zemo was going to awaken the other Winter Soldiers, and that it was going to be them planting the seed for his return, and they would be like his masters of evil / thunderbolts. I wouldn't call it my favorite thing, a wasted opportunity, just a missed opportunity. I can't wait for Zemo's return in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Doctor Strange. I just want to say that this movie has some crazy visuals. Whoever storyboarded this movie and the visual effect artist did an incredible job. So this movie has one real villain in it, but technically two villains. Caecilius, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Whew. Normally I say what a wasted opportunity for a character, What a wasted opportunity for an actor. Why waste this guy's talent on a D-list villain for a one-off appearance? Kyle's silliness is a cult leader that sometimes has a stoic and serious demeanor and then just not? Do they really weed in him? Yup. Kyle's silliness is a worthy adversary. He's a master of sorcery, a trained fighter, and is into some pretty nasty stuff. He's one kinky motherfucker. He lacks a good motivation. We barely get a backstory, and what we do get is just meaningless and adds nothing to the character. He's unrelatable as a character, his goals are nonsense, he should be way more intelligent and aware of the false paradise Dormammu offers. It just makes him an idiot. He's basically those bitchy girls from high school who all become part of a pyramid scheme and try selling you makeup. It's laughable. Why not wait to cast Mads in a truly pivotal role like, I don't know, Doctor Doom? Dormammu. If this ends up being his only appearance, that's a bummer. I do like how creative his defeat was. I'm really only mentioning him because he recruited Karen into his pyramid scheme, and I wanted to include some clips and shit from other media of Dormammu in this meme for a Photoshop battle I made. Here's hoping for more Dormammu, both literally, not just a wavy floating head, and well, literally have him involved more in the story. Time for everyone's favorite James Gunn team of misfits. The Suicide Squad of the Galaxy. No, wait. The Squadrons of the Suicide. No, wait. No, wait. I'm gonna get this right. Oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2. We are once again given multiple villains. We have Aisha, Ego, Nebula, and Taserface! Starting with Nebula. She's still bitter and angry. She's very vengeful. She will stop at nothing to kill Gamora, but can't go through with it and just want to beat her in combat. She's emotional and gets humanized. She's sympathetic, and now she's not a villain. Aisha and the Sovereign. They're an arrogant race. They suffer from a superiority complex. As Rocket says, conceited douchebags. Very sophisticated people. They're a great simile for a hierarchy aristocratic society. Ego. What a great performance from Kurt Russell. The character is super charming and charismatic. He makes you feel like he actually cares. He has this compassion to him, even if it's only a facade. His desire to not be alone is a pretty relatable characteristic and sort of humanizes him. He is very convincing in his lies that he uses to manipulate those around him, especially Peter, who he is able to wrap around his finger. A great example of this is a scene where Ego plays catch with Peter. It's something he never got to do as a kid, play catch with his father. His name suits him perfectly. His plan is pure ego. Ultimately, we learn how cruel and heartless he really is, being the one who gave Quill's mother cancer in the first place. Revealing this truth to Peter is his downfall, as Peter was on board with the expansion prior to that knowledge.
You cannot deny the purpose the universe has bestowed upon you!
And finally, the ultimate villain of the movie.
Taserface!
This guy is just a meathead who loves talking out of his ass and thinks he knows better than other people. He's a great laugh in the film and does cause a mutiny, but overall, he is clearly incompetent. Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, so this movie has several villains in it, but only one true antagonist. There are two different shockers in this movie, Jackson Bryce, who's just a hot-headed dick, and Herman Schultz. They're both kind of just there and are bad guy henchmen. The Tinkerer, Phineas Mason, is the tech guy for the villains, and that's about it. We also get Matt Gargan introduced as a setup for a future Sony film, whether it's Spider-Man or one of their 1,000 Spider-Man related character movies like the spy thriller Aunt May. The big bad of the movie is played by none other than Bruce Wayne himself, Michael Keaton. Keaton plays Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture. What a great performance by Keaton, but who expected anything less? He's an everyday working man just trying to make a living to provide for his family. We are given his origin in the opening of the movie, and it's short but sweet, and we don't have to spend 45 minutes of the movie diving into why this guy is a villain. He gets screwed over by the 1% and does what he needs to do to be able to provide for his family. His origin and motivation behind his turn to villainy is simple and effective, and something you can grasp and understand his choices. He's not some egomaniac. He just adapts to the world around him and continues to want to provide for his family. He doesn't tolerate bullshit, or let his ego cloud his judgment. He doesn't want to go after Stark's Quinjet because it would just be his ego, but ultimately decides to rob it when he doesn't have any other choice. He's not a coward, he's fearless, he's the man in charge, and he proves why. There's a great plot twist with him being Liz's dad. He's charming and intelligent, piecing together the identity of Spider-Man. That scene showcases how intimidating he is. The character shows that he's not truly evil, having some morals, protecting Peter's identity when he's in jail. Overall, the character plays as a great social commentary for the working class. Thor Ragnarok. Finally, a good Thor movie. Once again, we are given multiple villains in this movie. So let's start with Surtur, voiced by Clancy Brown. He looks really cool, the CGI is impeccable. He's used mostly as a joke/gag, unfortunately. This is a villain that has a lot of potential to be a real threatening force for Thor, but I kinda get why they didn't go full force with him. I'm just glad they at least included Surtur. The Grandmaster, brought to life by the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Goldblum. He's an eccentric, comedic relief character that's mostly well-mannered. He's almost like a billionaire in his attitude, making him a douchebag, always calling Thor the Lord of Thunder instead of God. He doesn't put up with betrayal and will execute anyone who does so. Is he really a great villain per se? But he's super enjoyable to watch. Scourge, played by Karl Urban. Karl Urban is great in anything he's in. His character is unqualified for the job he is given by Loki. Even as Hela's executioner, he's unqualified. He is conflicted on the choices Hela gives him. This is the guy that just wants to be respected and wants redemption for joining Hela, which he ultimately does get. I'm not really gonna consider him a villain, but it's Karl Urban, so I had to talk about him. Hela, played by Cate Blanchett. Thor's evil villainous sister. She's evil, fearsome, and just vicious. She has a tendency to cause property damage. After watching the movie for the first time, I really thought she was a step up from previous villains, but she kind of is just one-dimensional. She doesn't have a whole lot of personality, and her only goal is conquest. She's not relatable in that sense, but the performance is great, and destroying Mjolnir and cutting out Thor's eye makes her a memorable villain. This portion of the video is dedicated to Chadwick Boseman. His performance was incredible and will never be forgotten. Long live the king, Wakanda forever. This movie has two antagonists, Ulysses Klaue and Eric Killmonger. Before I get into the two antagonists, I'm going to talk about M'Baku. M'Baku is a great adversary and rival for T'Challa. He's the opposite of T'Challa, an arrogant leader. He's adapted in a contemporary way and doesn't come off as racist, being called the man-ape in the comics. But like T'Challa, he is an honorable man. Ulysses Klaue, once again played by Andy Serkis. I love his performance of this character, and I'm so glad he returns for another appearance, and I can't wait for him to show up in more.
He's not coming back.
What?
Not coming back.
Oh.
He's dead.
Oh. I'm so glad he returns for his last appearance in this movie. He's the smart, cunning, eccentric villain. He knows how to stage a crime scene. The vibranium mining tool turned sonic cannon is a great way of adapting his satellite hand from the comics. He's a giant child thinking everything is fun and games and is just excited by everything. The man is insane. He's almost able to turn Ross on T'Challa when revealing his secrets about Wakanda. The performance is just so great. The moment when his expression changes when Eric reveals himself to be Wakandan is just great acting. Marvel, why do you love wasting away perfectly good characters and actors? Klaue would have made a great recurring villain. Eric Stevens, aka Killmonger. Brought to life by Michael B. Jordan. Killmonger is one smug-ass dude. He's intimidating, but in a charismatic way. He's able to switch his emotions like that, from threatening to concerning, with the museum scene showcasing this. Killmonger is a tactical genius, his history and current actions proving so. He's trained all his life, and it shows as he's a skilled fighter besting T'Challa in combat. The dude is driven by his ambitions and won't let anyone stand in his way, killing his lover and Klaue to get into Wakanda. He's so passionate in his beliefs that he's able to even take the throne and become king. He has a great humanizing backstory, making him somewhat of a tragic character. He has a crystal clear goal and motive behind it. He has a bit of a twisted worldview, but in the end, Killmonger is right. Even though he dies and his plan is foiled, he ultimately wins the war. T'Challa opens up Wakanda to the world and shares its resources. Alas, we reach a monumental film in the series, Avengers: Infinity War. Before we get into the main character of the film, let's talk about his lackeys. The Black Order, consisting of Ebony Maw, Cull Obsidian, Proxima Midnight, and Corvus Glaive. Cull Obsidian is just an eviler Hulk than Abomination was. Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive are a married couple, though only really hinted at in the movie. They're both vicious and fierce warriors. None of these characters really get any sort of development, which sucks, but they're evil and we get that, and they don't need to be anything other than that for the context of the film. Corvus Glaive has one of the coolest f***ing designs for a character. Ebony Maw is the only developed character amongst the Black Order, and it's a shame he is disposed of before being more. His character is like an evil preacher or butler, almost like a villainous alien Alfred. He looks down to humans, especially Tony, ignoring him and talking directly to Doc Strange. He does not take kindly to being interrupted or outsmarted. The tone in his voice when he thinks he has the Time Stone and Strange's spell prevents him from taking it really irritates his smug ass. Then he dies. Bye! Thanos, brought to life perfectly by Josh Brolin. First and foremost, the CGI put into creating Thanos is incredible, and the performance by Josh is just so captivating. This character is written and portrayed so well. He has a stoic demeanor to him, he is very commanding and takes full authority in any room he enters. That being said, he is still a menacing and powerful foe. He beats Hulk in a 1v1 without the help of the Power Stone. He has this sternness to him that when he speaks, you immediately shut up and listen. The Mad Titan is extremely intelligent in execution of his actions. He manipulates the Guardians, anticipating their arrival to nowhere. When he fights the Avengers and Guardians on Titan, he is completely in control of the fight, even when it seems he is not. He utilizes the stones precisely and timely. He is a man of his word, having some traits of honor and nobility, honoring his agreement with Strange to spare Tony's life. He continues a trend of most MCU villains in being ruthless and cruel, and a great example of his cruelty is his treatment and disrespect for his daughter Nebula. Even with all that said, Thanos is actually compassionate and caring as well. Yes, his goal is to wipe out half of life, but he doesn't want them to suffer when being wiped from existence. He believes it's mercy. Thanos 100% only cares for one thing in the universe: Gamora. Yes, he wipes out half of her planet's life, including her parents, but saves her from the same fate and shields her from having to witness the genocide of her people. Speaking of wiping out half of a populace, even that, he wants it done in a dispassionate, fair way, rich and poor alike. His intentions are good, but his plan is whack. Thanos even sympathizes with Wanda over the loss of Vision. Another moment of his compassion, I guess, is on Nowhere, where after Quill pulls the trigger to kill Gamora, Thanos says to him, like, "I like you," and spares his life before disappearing. Thanos isn't all evil or all good. He is one of the most ambitious villains in the series, and is driven by his goal to balance the universe. He has himself convinced that his way is the only true way to achieve balance, and his strong belief for his conquest makes him a terrifying threat for everyone. Side note, Thanos has some of the coolest dialogue.
When I'm done, half of humanity will still be alive. I hope they remember you.
Dread it. Run from it. Destiny arrives all the same.
And now it's here. Or should I say, I am.
He refuses to let anyone or anything stop him from achieving his destiny, not even Gamora. He sacrifices her in a sheer moment that humanizes him and almost makes the audience sympathize with him. It's a very powerful moment for the character. Even though he has zero hesitation about throwing Gamora to her death, it breaks his heart as he deeply cares about her. There is just so much depth to this character, and unlike most MCU villains, he is the protagonist of Infinity War in a sense. Still the villain and the antagonist overall, but it is his movie, and his character benefits from it. He has a clear goal, we know his motivation, we see the conflict in him and how it affects him. He's a complex character, and that is just awesome. And in the end, Thanos succeeds in his plan. Something most villains in the MCU don't do. Ant-Man and the Wasp. I've been dreading this. This one is going to be short because out of the two antagonists, it still barely has a villain. There isn't even a real hero versus villain showdown. So let's get this crap over with. Sonny Birch, played by Walton Goggins, whatever. Who cares? He's a douchey evil businessman. He starts off intimidating, but has moments that make you really question his villainy. He would be a good villain in a crime drama or like a Punisher film. Who does he work for? Doesn't matter. Who cares? The truth serum ended his career as a criminal. Ghost, played by Hannah John Kamen. This character is one of the biggest disappointments and wasted opportunity for a character across the entire MCU. The performance was great. Aesthetically speaking, she looks cool as shit, and I love the constant quantum trail of herself. Her powers are used in a cool way during her introduction, but after that, the creative team behind the film dropped the ball and just put tables and shit in front of her and make her phase through it because she's a ghost. There's no out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to utilizing her power set. I was so excited for Ghost's live-action appearance. I loved the character in Iron Man Armored Adventures. Give me that Ghost. She's very strange and has these subtle nuances in her performance showing the pain she constantly deals with. She's given a tragic backstory that helps you sympathize with her and gives us a clear motivation. Overall, her character lacks in screen time and a good story. Here's hoping we get a second chance and some redemption for the character in the future. Captain Marvel. Again, this movie barely has a villain in it. The first act or so makes you believe the Skrulls are the villains, and it's a great first act. But the twist is, they aren't the villains, the Kree are. The main antagonist, if you can even call him that, is Jan Rog, played by Jude Law. He starts off as a caring mentor figure with strong leadership skills, and it's hard to tell if he actually cares for Carol or if he's just pretending the whole time. I think Jude Law does a fine job with what he's given, which isn't much. The Supreme Intelligence, played by Annette Bening. I want to see a giant, gross-ass alien head thing in a jar. Instead, we got the CW treatment of a human form. All she did, or all it did, whatever you want to call it, was manipulate Carol a bit, I guess. Bleh. Honorary mention, Ronan returns as a glorified cameo solely to set up a sequel. F you, movie. F you. The culmination of the Infinity Saga, Avengers Endgame. Thanos is back again. This time we get two versions, present day and 2014. There isn't much to say that hasn't already been said, but starting with present day Thanos. He is still one step ahead of the Avengers, having snapped away the stones, so he is still inevitable. He actually shows a moment of compassion towards Nebula before being executed by Thor. Even in death, this Thanos still wins. Thanos from 2014. This Thanos is still an evil warlord, like when we saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy. His attitude adds up as he hasn't developed like the previous Thanos. People can change a lot in 4 years. Or is it 5 years? For the 5 years. He is still highly intelligent, having the Pym particles replicated and mass-produced so he can travel to the future, where he knows he won. He pieces together the events to unfold. He is satisfied with witnessing his own future death, because he knows he won. He achieved his greatest accomplishment and goal. He gets a bit of an ego boost from seeing his success. His ego boost causes him to change his plan from snapping away half of all living creatures to recreating the universe in his own image. This Thanos is just as great as a warrior as the previous one, fighting and overpowering the Avengers in the final fight. He is so driven by his goals that he almost wins a second time, getting his hands on the gauntlet and even snapping a second time, but not realizing he lost the stones to Tony, who snaps him out of existence. He graciously accepts his fate as he fades away into nothing. This Thanos isn't near as developed or complex as the one in Infinity War, but he still makes a great villain. And finally, the epilogue to the Infinity Saga, and the end of Phase 3, Spider-Man: Far From Home. This movie, shockingly, only has one villain, my favorite Spider-Man foe, Mysterio, played by Jake, possibly more handsome than Ryan Reynolds' Gyllenhaal. The costume design for this character is perfect. It nails all the aspects of the character's costume while sticking to the aesthetic of the MCU. He is introduced to us as a hero, and the film does a great job of portraying the character as such. He is extremely charming when he meets Peter. He's understanding of Peter's struggles, and is a great mentor figure for Peter, who desperately craves to find a Tony replacement. Sure, it's a facade like everything with the character, but it's executed well. Like the comics, cartoons, and video games, Mysterio is a master of deception, and manipulative as he tricks Peter into giving him the glasses, and him looking like Tony when he tries them on is definitely part of his plan. The Berlin illusion scene is my favorite scene in this movie, or any Spider-Man movie to date. It is everything I wanted from a big screen adaptation of Mysterio. The letdown is we don't get another great scene like this in the finale. When it's revealed to the audience that Beck is evil, its full-on exposition in the dialogue might be a little cringy, but the acting and performance from Jake, possibly more handsome than Ryan Reynolds' Gyllenhaal, is outstanding, and his incredible performance continues throughout. Similar to Vulture, we're given a quick backstory of how he turned to villainy and his motivation for doing so, and I think it works well. It's enough info for us to understand where he's coming from. His fake backstory of being from another Earth is also great, especially since we will be exploring the multiverse. The guy is a megalomaniacal person and was fired for being too unstable, which we do see in the scene where he is practicing for his Avengers level threat. His goal is to be the next Iron Man, but I don't think he truly thought his plan through. What happens if he completely succeeded and a real Avengers level threat showed up? He would be ousted. Overall, he's a great villain for Peter, breaking him emotionally and mentally, and even outing him as Spider-Man. He really throws a wrench in his life. He doesn't succeed in his master plan, but is still able to leave a lasting impact moving forward. And with that, our journey through 23 films and dozens of villains has finally come to an end. I'm going to break down my list of best to worst Phase 3 villains, and then do an entire MCU villains breakdown. So without any further delay, so the number 1 spot for best villain of Phase 3 belongs to none other than Justin Hammer. Wait, how'd you get in here? Go away. Sorry. The number 1 spot belongs to Thanos. I mean, who else? The guy literally is the main character of an entire movie. He gets so much development. He's portrayed very well. He has inner turmoil and conflict, and we really get to know the character. And he actually succeeds in his plan. Spot number 2 is a tie between Zemo and Killmonger, because both of them are portrayed very well, they're written well, we get to understand the characters and their motivations, and both of them succeed in their plans as well. Number 3 goes to Vulture. First off, I forgot to mention this earlier, but he has a dope-ass costume. They did a very good job of adapting his silly costume from the comics. He's very relatable. We get to understand where he's coming from, his motivations, why he does what he does. You almost might sympathize with him, and that's why he deserves to be in number 3. Number 4 goes to Mysterio. He may not be super relatable in terms of personality and character, but he's portrayed very, very well, and he really screws up Peter's life. And being able to break the hero is just great, and he deserves this spot. Number 5 goes to Ego, because Kurt Russell does a great job. The character starts off as this charming father figure that you might actually root for, and just that switch to he's evil and the plot twist of him being the one that killed Quill's mother, and just even his plan, like his massive aspirations are just crazy. So I think he deserves spot number 5. Number 6 goes to Crossbones. He deserves a spot because without Crossbones, Civil War really wouldn't have happened. He is the catalyst for the Sokovia Accord, and that ends up leaving a lasting impact on the next few movies. Number 7 goes to Claw, because Andy Serkis is just awesome. His performance is wild, and I love it. And there was a lot of potential there for his character to actually grow and evolve. Unfortunately, he doesn't get the chance to, but I think he deserves spot number 7. I'm gonna give number 8 to Ebony Maw, because out of all the Black Order, he is the most developed one. He has a bit of personality, and he technically does get the time stone to Thanos. Plus, a lot of the other villains kind of suck. Number 9 goes to the Grand Master. Jeff Goldblum does a great job as the character. He really prolongs Thor's escape, and I mean, he's just kind of like an evil dictator. Yeah, he gets number 9, whatever. Hela gets number 10 because she's really just a one-dimensional villain, but she does leave a lasting impression because she does destroy Mjolnir and cuts Thor's eye out, which I mentioned earlier. But I don't think it would be fair to many of the other villains to put her any higher, and because of who's left, it would be unfair to her to put her any lower. Number 11 goes to Taserface! Mostly because Taserface does give away the position of the Guardians to the Sovereign and Aisha, and he does cause a mutiny to overthrow Yondu, but other than that, he's kind of just a joke. 12 goes to Surtur. Again, like, as a villain, there's nothing relatable about the character. He doesn't do anything. He just looks cool, and he does destroy Asgard. So, yeah, he gets that spot. Aisha is in spot number 13. She doesn't really do a whole lot. She's kind of just a pain in the ass. So, that's her spot. Number 13. 14 I give to the rest of the Black Order, just because they're evil henchmen, and it just kind of dicks. 15 I give to Jan Rog. Honestly, I don't even know why, because he doesn't really do anything. But I guess he's more of a villain than Sonny Birch, who is in spot number 16. And again, he doesn't really do much. He's just kind of there. And in spot number 17, it's the two Shockers and the Tinkerer, because like the Black Order, they're just evil henchmen doing evil henchmen things. Number 18 goes to Dormammu, mostly because he is the puppet master behind Caecilius, but he doesn't really do anything, so he doesn't deserve to be any higher. Number 19 goes to the Supreme Intelligence, because they do absolutely f*** all in the movie, and the only reason they are not in dead last is because spot number 20 belongs to Caecilius, who is just a terrible character and a waste of Mads Mikkelsen. This guy's just an idiot, and I don't like him. And now, for my final rankings of the entire MCU villains, I'm only going to include the main villains and not the side villains that I may have ranked throughout these 3 videos. So, number 1 obviously goes to Thanos, for reasons stated before. Number 2, I'm sticking with Zemo and Killmonger. They succeeded in their plans, and they deserve number 2. Loki gets number 3 because, like Thanos, he's a really developed character, but he ends up losing his villainy along the way, which is why he doesn't get number 2. 4 goes to Vulture because he's a very relatable, down-to-earth, grounded character. 5 goes to Mysterio because he's a master manipulator and he really screws up Peter's life. 6 goes to Alexander Pierce because the character almost convinces you that he is right. 7 goes to Red Skull because as a Nazi he doesn't have to be anything other than evil, and the performance is just really well done. 8 goes to Ronan because he's this ruthless, fear-mongering, radical terrorist, and he's pretty cool. 9 goes to Ultron because we have moments where we understand him and that humanizes him, and even though his plan is whack, you know where his thought process comes from. 10 goes to Ego, mostly for things mentioned earlier. You know, he has huge aspirations, and his plan, if he succeeded, would have been incredible. Obadiah gets number 11 because I really do love Jeff Bridges as the character. He just falls flat in the 3rd act. Number 12 goes to Ivan Vanko, and I think I'll get a lot of controversy for this, but he's one of the first villains to actually have clear motivations, and we understand why, and he even actually succeeds. He just, throughout the film, which is a problem in Phase 1, he becomes not so great during the 3rd act. Number 13 goes to the Winter Soldier, because he's a great threat and adversary for Cap, but he's not truly a villain and he's being brainwashed. Number 14 goes to Justin Hammer because he's so much fun, and without him, Vanko really wouldn't have been able to do what he does, so he deserves spot number 14. 15 goes to Yellow Jacket because, like Obadiah, he's a great evil businessman turned, suited up villain. He's a little one-dimensional, but like the acting is good, and subtle nuances in his performance that are great. 16 goes to Blonsky because the first 2 acts, he's really good when he's a real Blonsky, and once he becomes Abomination, he really loses it for me. 17 goes to Hela because she's just a one-dimensional villain. No matter how good the performance is, her only goal is conquest. She's not relatable, so she's better than number 18, who is Killian. He is just awful and nothing he does makes sense. Caecilius gets number 19 because he's also awful and he does even less things that make even less sense than Killian. And the final spot, number 20, belongs to the worst villain in the MCU, which is Malekith. He has no motivation whatsoever. He's not relatable. He's super one-dimensional, and he doesn't even get enough screen time to slightly develop as a character. He's just there to be a villain, so he deserves to be at the bottom. And now our journey is complete. Thanks for watching this series. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment, let me know who your favorite villain of the MCU is, if you agree or disagree with my rankings, and don't forget to sub for more videos like this. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.